Welcome to Mom Maintenance, Episode 10, The Life You're Missing When You Avoid Feelings. You're not a bad mom, your brain just needs maintenance. This is a short pep talk for moms who are trying their best and still feel overwhelmed. I've been thinking lately about something normal that our brains do that seems to help us, but actually ends up really limiting our experiences. You probably don't even notice you're doing it unless you slow down and think about it for a second. It's just these small, everyday moments where you quietly decide that something is not worth the effort. Let me give you some examples. So you open a text from a friend, you read it, you start typing, but then you stop. Maybe you can't think of the right thing to say, or it's been a couple days. Or you just don't have the energy to get into a whole conversation. So you tell yourself, I'll answer later. And then you don't. So you're in the kitchen with your husband. He says something, nothing huge, but it lands wrong. And there's that split second where you could say, hey, that actually bothered me. You feel it come up, and then you push it back down. Because you don't want to get into it. You don't want to explain. You don't want it to turn into a whole thing. So you just keep moving on. Or you're at your kid's practice. There's another mom standing next to you. You've seen her before. She seems nice. There's that tiny window where you could say something and your brain goes blank. You feel that flicker of awkwardness and then you get lost in your phone instead. None of these moments feel big or dramatic. They just feel like, I'll do it later. It's fine. I don't feel like dealing with that. And honestly, that makes sense. You're already overstimulated, your to-do list is long, you make 1,000 decisions a day, so your brain is constantly looking for ways to make things feel easier. Less awkward, less emotional, less effort. But easier isn't the same as better. If you start paying attention, you'll realize something. A lot of what you're avoiding isn't actually hard, it's just uncomfortable for a minute. It's the feeling of not knowing what to say, worrying it might be awkward, not wanting to get into something with big emotions, not wanting to feel exposed or vulnerable, not knowing what the outcome will be. Just that small moment where you hesitate and unconsciously pull back. But here's a secret that can change your whole approach. A lot of what makes life feel really good, connection, closeness, feeling like yourself again, laughing with someone who gets you, having real, sometimes hard conversations. It all lives inside of those moments, the ones that aren't perfectly comfortable. That text you didn't send, it might have just been a quick back and forth, but it also might have been a moment that made your day feel lighter. That thing you didn't say, it could have been a simple, honest conversation that made you feel a little more understood. The moment you looked at your phone, it might have been nothing. Or it might have been the start of a connection that makes all those kid practices feel less tedious. The point is not that every one of these moments will turn into something amazing. Sometimes it is a little awkward and sometimes nothing really comes from it, but sometimes it does. If you start to habitually avoid the unsure moments for mental ease or safety, you will miss out on the magic of what can happen when you push through that discomfort. And over time, those small moments where you choose to stay instead of pull back, that's what creates a life that feels fuller. Not because everything is easy, but because you're actually in it. So here's my invitation for something to try. The next time you feel yourself pulling back by not responding, not saying what you want to, not starting, pause for a second and ask yourself, what am I trying not to feel right now? Awkward? Unsure, a little vulnerable, and recognize that that emotion is not as dangerous as your brain says it is. That's it. Because if you can remind your brain that it's okay to be a little uncomfortable, maybe instead of automatically stepping out, you stay in the moment. You send the text, you say the sentence, you start the conversation, even if it's a little clunky. Not perfectly, not every time, just a little more often. Because your life isn't made up of big dramatic changes. It's made up of these tiny moments. And when you start staying in them, instead of quietly skipping them because you are afraid of the feelings, life doesn't suddenly become perfect. But it does start to feel more connected, more open, more like you're actually living it instead of just getting through it. If this made you notice a few moments from your own day, that's enough. You don't need to fix anything. Just pay attention to where you've been avoiding feelings and see what happens when you don't. You're not a bad mom. You're a mom who's learning how to stay in her life, even when it feels a little uncomfortable. And that's mom maintenance. I'll talk to you next time.